This is a video that I'm making in response to Mount Zion 211's video dealing with Revelation chapter 11 and the two witnesses. As you know, he and I in this discussion are not making videos back to back where I say one thing and he refutes it and he says something, I refute it, and we're just giving our views on the book of Revelation for people to see what could be two different views. But we've touched on a chapter now that I don't think it would violate what he and I are trying to do by me making a response directly to his own chapter 11 dealing with the two witnesses. As I watched his video, he and I had a little discussion in the comment section there, and I really feel that Mount Zion 211 did an excellent job in presenting the entire chapter of Revelation 11. He went through there and he hit on the main points of who the two witnesses were, and he gave the different positions that somebody or people have held through the years, like Moses and Elijah, or the church, or two witnesses of that particular time. The good thing about it, as I said, is that he touched on what people have said about this chapter through the years, and then he gave what he thought it was himself, but he didn't lock himself into that position. And many times we have these chapters or verses in the Bible that we can look at and read what other people have said about it, and look at things that we might think that it is, and sometimes it just doesn't all of a sudden come to us as what the Bible is really teaching. And we can go off and study other things for a period of time, and then all of a sudden come back to it, and it kind of like it just jumps out at us then as what the meaning is. So I think he did an excellent job, let's say, in presenting his case on this, and realizing that it is one of those difficult chapters that sometimes we may just have to wait and study other things before we can come to the conclusion on it. But I want to point out several things here that that was of interest to me in chapter 11, and shows you and can show you how people, if they lock themselves into a particular view, and the view I'm getting ready to give you is totally wrong, then they even change their other doctrines around just to fit a wrong view to start with. There are those people who, for some reason, want to consider the two witnesses in Revelation 11 as being the Old and the New Testament. Of course, the text itself shows that is totally wrong. They're not the Old and the New Testament Bible, as they say that it is. But I wanted to point out why they locked themselves into this view. And it has to do with another view they hold, and say that the soul is not immortal. And when you read verse 12 of chapter 11, it says, "Then they heard a loud voice from the heaven saying, 'Come up here.' And they went up to the heavens in a cloud as their enemies looked on." In other words, these two witnesses whose body has laid in the street now for 3.5 days, all of a sudden they're taken to heaven. Now, to people who don't believe in the immortality of the soul, they can't interpret it that way, and that's exactly what the Bible is saying. They were taken into heaven. But again, when you hold a view that the immortality of the soul, then you have to change your entire interpretation of chapter 11 just to fit another wrong doctrine that you have. So rather than admitting that these are very well could be two people, they just want to wrongly interpret it and say the two witnesses are the Old and the New Testament. Now that's a position that is totally wrong to me. Thank goodness Tom doesn't hold that position or even gives it into consideration as far as I know. But I want to look at it in another way here, Mount Zion, and just give you something to think about as well here. When we look at these two witnesses, as Mount Zion pointed out, people have said that they could be Moses and Elijah, or the church, or the Jews and the Gentiles, whatever may be there. But let's look at it this way as well, realizing that everything that Tom said in his video is exactly right. Think about this as well. It could very well have been that it was two witnesses who lived in the time of the Apostle John. We know that the Roman Empire was persecuting Christians at the time, and if these two witnesses came out spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ, it could have been very well two witnesses of that time who were killed. And in order to show disdain for them, they left their bodies laying in the street for 3.5 days, which was a total wrong thing for people to do then. They wouldn't even not even give these two witnesses the proper burial, which had just desecrated their bodies, so to speak. And so it could very well be that it was two witnesses who were out spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ in face of persecution. And it should give us an incentive, if that is the case, that regardless of the persecution going on in our lives, wherever it may be, we have the responsibility to share the gospel of Jesus Christ with everyone. One passage that some people might talk about and say, well, no, it can't be that way. And I don't have any problem with it saying it can't be that way, but I'm just giving you something that I see in there as well. You look at verse 13, and it said, at that moment there was a great earthquake, and a tenth of the city fell in ruins, and 7,000 people were killed. Well, it was not uncommon for earthquakes to be happening then. So it could very well be that an earthquake did take place and kill 7,000 people. Now this wasn't some select group of Gentiles or Jews or whomever. It was just 7,000 people, Christian, non-Christian, whatever. Excuse me. But there was earthquakes, 3 earthquakes mentioned in the Bible there in Jerusalem. We know that there was an earthquake in 60 A.D. that totally destroyed Laodicea. The people were rich enough that they could rebuild the city themselves without any help from the government. But again, another earthquake hit there in 65, as it did in Jerusalem, 65 A.D., and totally destroyed Laodicea again. So it wasn't something uncommon for an earthquake to be taking place at that particular period of time. So it could very well be that there were two witnesses out witnessing about the gospel of Jesus Christ. The Roman Empire had them killed. They left their bodies laying in the street for 3.5 days. Following that, an earthquake took place, killing some 7,000 people. Now, again, that is something that I see within the text, whether that's the right interpretation or not. That's something that I do see in the text itself. But here's the main thing that I liked about Mount Zion, and I'm going to stay with him on this, is that do the witnesses really matter? Does it really matter who the witnesses are, as long as we don't change what the passage is trying to tell us to start with? That, to me, is the most important thing. I may have a passage of Scripture where I have a particular character wrong, or something wrong, and I can go further into error by misinterpreting it because of that. But if I take it and say, well, I can see the possibility of it being this or it being that, as long as I don't change the interpretation, then I don't feel that I've damaged the Scripture. But it's when you begin changing the interpretation is when a person begins getting in trouble. So again, to me, it's irrelevant as to who the witnesses are. Sure, I would like to know, like anyone would like to know, but I'm not changing the meaning of the text by giving this position on it. I hope in some way this has helped to clear up chapter 11. And like Mount Zion, I encourage people to study it and to read it and to come to an understanding of it. But please do so without changing the meaning of the text. And you'll be one step ahead of a lot of people who use nothing more than guesswork and speculation here. Again, I thank Mount Zion for his cooperation in working with me and his excellent videos dealing with the discussion of the book of Revelation. Until next time, this has been Golly saying, God bless.